So it's nice to have you back. So today we were going to explore Canva as a tool to show what you know, so student portfolios within Canva. As I mentioned, it's the fourth session. So in the first three, we really looked at the basics of Canva, so how teachers and consultants can use it, how to navigate it, using templates versus creating from scratch. And then the main tools we looked at were infographics, presentations, podcasts, videos, how to share it, how to download it, because there's so many ways to share it, and also for students. And also we included something about accessibility, so how to build accessible visuals from the get-go and how you can make your everything that you make in Canva accessible from the get-go. Um, we actually were asked to do this series again in 2026. So if ever you have teachers who want to join, or if ever you missed something and want to watch them again or participate again, we'll probably offer the same four workshops in 2026. Um, so our plan for today was to experiment with using Canva for student portfolio, and also we included a piece about assessments, how to use Canva for student assessments. So we wanted to look at portfolios, rubrics, polls, and also activities. We wanted to give some time for hands-on, so there's some new features we wanted to share and to give you time to explore it. That way, if you have any questions, we're here for that. And then, as always, we'll have a sharing and reflection period. So, here, I'm wondering, should we go to the interactive whiteboard or just open our mics and use the chat? What do you want, Lisa and Anne?
I don't think we need to go to the
No,
whiteboard.
that's it. I know, I think you both have already, because the goal is really to break the ice, but also to interact with the interactive whiteboard, which I think you both already have.
We already have, yes.
That's it. So I'll spare you that. But speaking of the interactive whiteboard, we had a question come up last time about it, like how it can be anonymous for students, but then again, it's not quite anonymous because some of the features. So we explored the different possibilities. Like here, if I add a sticky note to it, my name usually automatically pops up. I think it's because I removed my name before. Wait. Um, if I click it, yeah, that's it. Before joining, I removed my name. So here, usually when you're signed into your account and you add a sticky note, your name shows up here. You can have the students remove their name. However, their cursor, let's say someone else is in there and signed in, like Stacy or Lexi. You want to go on that slide? Usually you can see your name on the cursor, so then it's not so anonymous because other students could see the cursor and see the name associated to it. There, so we can see Stacy, we can see Lexi. So even though they took their name off the post-it, you could still see that it's them typing within the post-it. So we can't, unfortunately, we searched, we asked the questions, and you can't take the name off the cursor to make it anonymous. So the best way to work around that would to make your document public so students can contribute or teachers, but they have to be signed out of their Canva. So once they're signed out of their Canva, they just get this random name like Happy Antelope or something like that, like on Google. So that would be the workaround that we found. Otherwise, like we confirm that you can't change your cursor name. So that would be the best way. But otherwise, we're going to explore polls and quizzes a little later, and there is a way to collect data with the respondents' names or without the name. So that's a pretty interesting option to be anonymous. Digital competency, I'm pretty sure you're both pretty competent in that. So here we're especially going to be talking about collaboration, communication, content production, and being an ethical citizenship online, how to be responsible online. So I will stop screen sharing. Actually, I'll pass it to you, Lexi, to jump into portfolios.
Okay, thank you. So, essentially, as Cajo mentioned, the main part of what we're looking at today's portfolios. We'll also get into some other elements of, assessment related things that can be done in Canva as well. But when we're thinking about portfolios, we're looking at, collecting evidence of learning and reflecting on that learning. So it's a great way for students to to think about, you know, what they've accomplished throughout the year, what goals they might have, what challenges they've encountered, and so on. Something I think that is good to think about is that ideally a portfolio is not something that's happening at the end of the year as kind of an afterthought, but rather it's a tool that's being used throughout the year. So it's something that you could introduce to your students early on, have them start to develop certain parts of it, identify some learning goals they might have, and so on, and then move through the year and add to it as the school year progresses or as the term progresses. So if we're thinking about Canva, Canva can be used in a couple of different ways for creating portfolios. And so we've kind of got two main ways to do this. One would be to use the whiteboard feature of Canva, and then the other could be to use presentations. So we'll look at both of those as options. Something else that you might consider is that with Canva, we can be including work that is just has been created else outside of Canva, right? It could be work that was, on paper with pencil. It could be work that was created in a different digital platform. And when we want to bring that in, alternatively, we might also have been really dedicated to Canva and if we've been going through it a lot with our students, they might have a lot of work within Canva that they might want to share. So there's a couple of ways that we can show that. So what we've done here is we've included a few different templates that we found within Canva. And so, for example, we can click on them and open them up here. And so there, are basic kind of templates that students could go ahead and edit to have their own text, to have their own images and such. So you can always take a look at these ones a little bit more in depth later on, but just to give you an idea that there are a few templates. There's not a ton on Canva yet, but there are a few different things you might be able to find. So again, templates can be really great because it helps structure, create some structure for the students so that they're not starting completely from scratch, since that might take a little bit of extra time. So just a couple of different examples. And these ones are kind of simple. And then I was playing around with it. So in the top here, I have two templates that I've created, and they're just very simple. But the first one here is more in a presentation style. So if we're thinking something similar to a Google Slides or a PowerPoint presentation. So I can go ahead and open this up as if I was going to be editing it. And so it's very basic to start, but this is something that you could take for yourself and then change and edit with all of the fonts and colors, etc., to create it for your students and make it more in line with your learning goals. So it could be in this presentation style where we have multiple slides, and there might be a place for them to describe themselves, who they are as a learner, etc. Putting in different learning goals, and so they can go ahead and type. They can add their photos, that are related to those different pieces of text. And then they can go ahead and insert projects and explain why it's significant, reflect on their learning, and so on. Okay, and then the other option that we had talked about was using a whiteboard. So this one's a little bit different. And so again, if I open up this template, so I have here a teacher guide, which just kind of brings you through it. And then this section, when it comes time for you to share this with students, you would delete this teacher portion of it. And you could leave these student instructions here, and you clearly have there's space to add the instructions that might be more relevant to your own students and in your own environment. So you can edit all of these elements. And then below is a kind of template that students might use to fill in their portfolio. So instead of having multiple slides, this could be kind of a simpler, smaller, one-page overview of their year. And you could have, again, similar elements to what we saw in the presentation, but they're bringing in, all in one page. And then again, they can drag in elements and add and such. So if we take a look at what that might look like, if I come over here, I started playing around with this one. And so we have, I had brought in some photos from different projects I worked on over the year or past year or so. And then I've started playing with bringing in some of my projects. And so in this case right here, this is just a simple photo where I went and uploaded it. So again, using my left button to upload files and going to select photos I had taken previously. So this could be a place where you could upload images or videos of work that was created either on paper or tests that were taken or other projects that, are not in a digital space yet. So uploading photos of videos and then placing them into your Canva document. And then what we also really love about Canva is the ability to bring in those public view links to other projects that have been created within Canva. So I'll go over those steps again since it's a very powerful element, and we're going to take a moment to practice what that is. So if I am in Canva and I have a project, for example, I don't know if that will. I'm trying to find in here. Let me say that this podcast that I worked on, and it, I've finished my project and I'm ready to share it. So again, to get that public view link in the top right is where we're going to hit share. And we're going to look for the button that says public view link. Sometimes it might say create. I think here it says that it's live because I've already created it previously. So once it's created once, it's the same link and I just need to copy it. And when I come back to my other document that I'm working in, when I hit Control V or Command V, depending on your computer, it should paste right in there. Mine's having a bit of trouble. Try that again. It doesn't want to be working today. Oh, there we go. Okay. Maybe now there's going to be three.
Sometimes the videos and podcasts are a bit longer to
Yeah,
load.
it might take a second.
Infographics are like pretty instant, but the videos are longer.
So you can see now that my project, and if it's a video or in this case the little animated podcast, it's a live document that I can interact with within this board. So it's a great way to easily share multiple projects within one singular document. And so okay, I think my computer is also being a bit slow. If I go and take a look at this one I had previously added, there's a video here. It mentions double click to interact. So when I double click, I can then go ahead and it's playing the video that I had previously created. And then again, what's really great with Canva and especially the whiteboard here we've got is we could add these little, post-it notes and such. So I could go ahead and add post-it notes to reflect on that learning and say things and I could elaborate on that. And I can then basically, when I go grab a line, so I want to add a line to connect this reflection with my learning, my evidence of learning. So what I can do is hit L for line, and you can see it created a line. Alternatively, I could go in the elements and add one, or tools here, and hit a line, and it will create a line. But shortcut is just to hit L on your keyboard and it makes a line. So what I can do is when I click on that line, if I grab the little white end and I drag it, I can connect it to my post-it, and you see now it's connected. So wherever I drag it, it's always there. And then I can do the same thing with the other end. And so it's always connected. Whoop, didn't quite get connected that time. There we go. There. Oh, I'm having trouble today. There we go. Okay. So now it's connected, and even though I move stuff around, I can connect, I can have those elements be together. And then one final fun thing with this line you could also do is if you double click on the line itself, it actually allows you the ability to type. And so you could also add text here. Oh my goodness. Sorry about that. Okay. So you can add text directly to that line if that's something that you choose to do. So a lot of great options when it comes to creating the portfolio in Canva. Again, we can be looking at more of a presentation style and flipping through slides, or we can be working in some kind of a whiteboard. And again, the whiteboards are infinite. So I can scroll out and I can have it be a really massive document with a lot of different elements in that same page, and then scroll in and navigate to the different parts when I want to see the text more easily read. Okay. So I think what we'll do now is we'll just take a quick moment just to practice that public view link part, since that's a bit of a trickier part. So what I invite you to do right now is to open up a tab, find a template. It can be a template for a portfolio if you can find a cool one. And then you're going to create a public view link to it and share that in this whiteboard. So again, you're essentially going to navigate to Canva. We can look up student portfolio. We can find one that interests us. Okay, I'm going to hit customize this template. And so now it's made a copy within my own Canva account. We're going to hit share. We're going to create the public view link. And we're going to copy that and then come ahead and paste it into this whiteboard here. So it's a chance for you to practice, and it also gets us a chance to explore various templates that are in the Canva system.
And if you're looking for a template and you just search portfolio, we noticed you're going to get a lot of business portfolios. But if you add the keyword student in front, then more student and educational ones are going to pop up.
I think the one that I added is a fairly simple, like it's just a singular page. Yeah. It's not a very complex one, but I think Stacy added this one that looks like there's more elements to it. Oh, and in French too. Good. Let's make it bigger.
It's more businessy, but it was the first time I noticed a French template for portfolios. That was interesting.
And I think that's what the great thing is about all the Canva templates is that you can start from like a more businessy one, but then as the teacher adapt it and then share your version with your students so that it's more appropriate for their level. Let's see if we can find another one. This one looks kind of interesting. Are there any questions about this part so far? And then I think one of the great things about Canva in general is our ability to add comments and react to each other's work. So it could be an opportunity to have students share their portfolios with one another and give each other feedback. And so we can do that again in a multitude of ways, by adding sticky notes and saying something constructive and positive for their peers. I really like this template, right? And we can go ahead and add those lines to connect what I'm thinking with the work that Stacy put. There we go. I can have my name there so that we, as a teacher knows, oh, Lexi did her comment to Stacy's work and so on. Because you could always have, potentially, you could have a whiteboard where if everyone's created their portfolios, you could have everyone create public view links to their portfolios and share those portfolios in one whiteboard, and then have students have to go and add comments and react and so on, right? So lots of opportunities for feedback and reactions and comments. So that kind of segues us into the next part. So as we said, we can do that by adding those sticky notes or stickers or little emojis and so on to the work that others have done. As the teacher, there are ways to add comments and so on, just as you would in like a Google Doc or anything like that. So that can be a really great way to provide ongoing feedback as the student is working through. Because again, ideally the portfolio is not something that is being created just at the end of the year, and there's not that kind of like back and forth, but rather ideally it's something that we start at the beginning of the year or early on, and we're building on it, and then there's feedback between the teacher and the students. So a great way to practice these types of communication and that digital competency that Caro mentioned earlier in the presentation. I think it's Stacy's turn now.
Hey, okay, so I will share my screen. Make sure I share the right one because that can always be fun. Yay! Okay. So next, we thought we'd talk a bit about rubrics because they're a wonderful way to assess portfolios and, of course, many other different kinds of projects that you're going to be potentially doing with students in class. And Canva, again, has a huge collection of templates for rubrics as well. So if I go here on my home screen, back to Canva at the top, into templates, and I type in rubrics, you'll see that there are many different ones. One thing with Canva is that it tends to show you when you search for a template within a document or just in this general screen. If you just do a general blank general search, it tends to show you the same kind of file format that you've been creating a lot. Or for example, if I go into the presentation that we're in and I wanted to add a rubric inside of that, if I just go to design and press search rubric, you'll notice that it's giving me presentations about rubrics and evaluation because it tends to give you the same kind of file format. So it's handy to know that most of their templates for like teaching and assessment rubrics are 8.5 by 11. So that if you're looking to add those to an existing design, oh man, this Zoom bar is in my way. I'm very sorry. But you could go over here to the end of, for example, my presentation, and then I could add a custom size. So I could put like my 8.5 by 11 in here, and then I could, then I could find more rubrics if I went and looked for designs. Okay. So for example, here, and now again, if I look at rubrics, you'll see that the kinds of rubrics that will show up when I search. Here in designs have changed. So before it was showing me presentations about assessment, and now it's showing me actual different kinds of assessment rubrics that I can add to an existing presentation. Okay. One of the fun things about rubrics with Canva is that rubrics can take a long time to write and customize. I think as educators, like you're trying to make a rubric for a project and to fill it out sometimes, again, can be time consuming, but the AI tools in Canva we can use kind of can help us, support us in making those tasks a bit quicker. So here, for example, I have a template, that I found of just a blank rubric that I liked in Canva. And I want to fill it out, but I'm going to have AI help me so that it'll be a bit faster. So here, to fill out the rubric, I'm going to convert the table into sheets. Ooh, okay. I might have to do some formatting here in terms of alignment with the text. But you'll see, I'm going to shrink it down here, that my concepts are here just a bit laid out funny. Okay. Oh, my Zoom bar is in the way. I very much apologize. It's because everything is left-centered. Perfect. So from there, to fill out my rubric with sheets, I'm going to click here in the corner of the left of my table. And you'll see that I've already got my scale here. I could change that if I wanted to, or keep it the same. And from there, I'm going to go to Actions. And I'm going to press Fill Empty Cells. And you can see there, it's going to generate an example rubric structure to fill in those concepts for me. And from there with the AI, I can customize it. So maybe I want to do something like this, but in student-friendly language, okay? And from there, it's going to regenerate. And the more I can regenerate as many times as I want to get exactly the language that I'm happy with. And from there, I can simply insert that into my template. My dogs are very excited, so hopefully that Zoom tools are working well. Okay. So that is a fun, easy way again, and I could go and I could customize these and regenerate them. So maybe I want to use this template, but I want to change this to be about maybe math multiplication. Okay, multiplication skills. And I'll just go here again. Maybe I'll delete these rows by doing tab and then removing them just so we can focus in on the one row. And then again, if I erased these and I click in the corner, I am going to go up to Actions again and Magic Fill to fill it in. Okay. So fill empty cells, and you'll see now it's about multiplication skills. So it's a very quick way, again, if you have your criteria and your different levels, that you could quickly generate a rubric for a given assignment. You might have to do some formatting. So this template, it's not perfect because it's all not showing all my text, but it could be adjusted.
Stacey, if you go just where, click again where you were, and then up on the toolbar beside the alignment is the button that will do that.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks.
So that little button is what will help you have the text wrap underneath so that you can see everything.
Thanks, Lexi.
You're welcome.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. So I guess, Lexi, I'm going to pass it on to you for some other ways that we could use Canva for formative assessment.
All right, so we're going to look a little briefly at polls and quizzes, which is something that you can create easily in Canva and then insert anywhere as a way to quickly assess student understanding. And this can be, you know, great for like a piece of diagnostic assessment at the beginning of a unit or something where you're trying to understand how much do your students already know. It can be also great later on when you're trying to see, okay, did they understand that piece of learning or that piece of content that we've gone over. So to create polls and quizzes, it's going to be by going in the left at elements, and you're going to look for forms. So it's not necessarily the most intuitive. It used to say polls and quizzes, and Canva's done some updates. So now it says forms. And when you click that, it pops open a bunch of kind of templates, but you can pick one generally and then edit it to match exactly what you're looking for. So you know, if I look in education, they're going to be a bit more oriented to what we're hoping for. So I can go ahead and select one, and it's going to open that up in my screen. And then I can hit the edit button at the top here in my toolbar to edit the text that is within this question, or this quiz rather. And so I could edit the text itself, you know, instead of saying not true, I could say what is false, right? I can edit the question. I can edit each response by clicking and typing. I can add options. So it is very warm in Quebec right now. And that is also clearly false. So I can actually select multiple. Why do I have trouble? There is a way to have more than one. I've had this before where I had it have multiple correct answers, and now it doesn't want to work again. I'm not sure why. I'm missing something.
Yeah, that happened to me too, but I forget where the workaround was.
Because I've definitely had where you can have multiple correct answers, but I don't know why.
Was it checkbox?
Maybe
No.
text box? Well, that's definitely one way to do it.
Yeah, it was checkbox. So.
Okay, there we go. Checkbox. Perfect. So, okay, so to go over that, since we clearly struggle with it, instead of being multiple choice, if you want to have multiple correct answers, you can use the checkbox question format, and then that way you have you can have as many correct answers as you want. And then we can go ahead and add to this quiz here. I can go ahead and add other questions, you know. And you can have different types of questions. And so this is a long answer, so it's giving them a place to type, and so we can continue. Whoops. Sorry about that. We can continue that way. Now you can see at the bottom here, it says your name will be shared. Never submit passwords. So if I click back on this and edit it again, in my settings, as the person who's creating the poll, this is where I can decide if I want to collect student names or I do not want to collect student names. So if you're looking for something anonymous, you can decide to do that. And now you see that your name will not be shared. So this can be a great way. You know, you might say like, do you have any questions? And you know, you don't want students to be shy to ask a question. So this can be a great way to you know, elicit those questions from students and have it be anonymous. As for collecting names, they do need to be signed into their Canva account for it to collect their names. So if you have them working in Canva not signed in, then you might add a question here that is your name, right? And then that way, you know, you can, as the teacher, know, you know, whose response is whose if they're not signed into Canva. So just a couple of options there. And then just like with any other Canva elements, you can change the color, the font, and so on to make it more accessible for your students. One of the really cool things in Canva is the ability to use the Canva magic to create some of these polls and quizzes. So this is kind of an example where we had taken a text about penguins and then we used it to create a little quiz question. So I'll show you kind of how that works. Maybe I'll just do it on the next slide here. So I might actually start by having it about the water cycle. Okay, so I'm going to just have it generate a text here about the water cycle. I would, of course, read this to make sure it's accurate and it's correct for my students, depending on their age. But we will assume that it's fine for today. So once I have this text, now this could be something generated, but it could also be something that you have created yourself and you've put into Canva, you've typed it up here. Once you have it, you can go ahead and click on it. And if you hit, if you hit magic right, so again, I'm clicked on my text and I hit the little, pencil here with the magic going on, and I can go ahead to generate quiz. So I'm going to generate a quiz, and basically Canva is going to create one question based on that, and there it is. Okay, and of course I can go ahead and take a look and make sure it's accurate, and I can always go and edit it as needed, and I can change, what it is, etc. Okay, and again, you can decide if it's anonymous or not, and that's it. The only downside with this that we've found is that there doesn't seem to be a way to. Oh, no, there is, yeah. So I can go ahead and now I can add another question myself. So I can add another question related to this, So then I can add my own question. The downside, though, is that Canva itself doesn't seem to generate like multiple questions within the same quiz. So it can give you one and start you off, and then you can add your own to it. And there's some pretty cool stuff once we get the responses, but I'm going to let Stacy show that once she's shown her cool AI stuff.
Ooh. Okay, so I'll go here. Perfect. So we can use Canva AI to make a lot of fun interactive games or quizzes that have multiple questions. So from the main page, you'll notice that there's three tabs. So if you click on the Canva AI tab, you'll have a text box that you can use to generate content. So you'll see while Lexi was prepping hers, just because it takes time, I took the liberty to write a little prompt. So I'm asking it to generate an interactive quiz game in English for my grade for students in Quebec, because if you don't specify it in English, it usually puts it in French if you say that you're in Quebec. I put that I wanted to focus the game on the Quebec geography, history, and citizenship, and I want it to have 5 to 10 questions. And I can actually upload with the little plus button here, any kind of teaching material that I have the rights to upload. So again, making sure that we're not breaching any confidential copyright laws or anything. But here I'm just going to upload some of my material. Oh, it's too large. So maybe I won't. Here, I'll put in a topic instead, but you could if you had a smaller file. We'll put it on New France around 1645. Okay. Now, Canva, about a week, 2 weeks ago, has now updated their Canva AI software so that you can generate an interactive quiz or game and actually collect the data into Canva sheets. So we'll show you a bit about what that means after, but it basically allows you to, if students do an interactive quiz, that you can actually collect the information of what they input and use that for assessment. So you'll notice that in my prompt, I'm going to ask it to collect the data. And I want to really be specific that I want feedback about how each student performs on individual questions, because that will depend, that will change how Canva lays out my sheet in the end. And I put that, okay, I will remove this part about my user thing. And I put here that I wanted students to submit a nickname because we're using Canva AI. And as I'm going to show you after, you can use the AI tools in Canva to kind of assess data that you collect. I'm going to make sure that I ask for a nickname because I don't ever want to put students' confidential information into any kind of AI systems. So now I am going to remove this and generate it. It will take about 5 to 10 minutes. It depends on the length of the request or how complicated the request is, but you'll notice that it will code the interactive game for me. So while we wait, I'll show you, there's a link in the slideshow to a multiplication quiz I created last week, just to show you again what the output might look like. So here's an example of a multiplication quiz where a student could pick their level and then enter a nickname. And you'll see then that they have different questions. So they can go in and submit their answers. Oh, it won't let them submit letters. I already tried that. I was trying to break my game earlier. And then they can submit the results to the teacher. And then as the teacher, that actually collect all that data, this is from an example, can get put into my, my Canva sheets. Now from there, you can see this one, I asked for to gather information on how my students did on individual questions. These are just example students. I used the, oh, here, new data. So that's probably my question from Bob coming in. Oh, great. So Bob has filled out his answers. And you'll see, oh, new information again. Someone else, okay, is filling it out. And from there, I can actually generate information based on this data. So I'm going to select my table. And here in the actions, I'm going to go to Magic Insights. And then I can ask a question. So I want to know where my students are struggling. Okay, you could ask them where they're performing well, maybe what multiplication tables they're most proficient at, and it will look in the data. It'll take about a minute, and it will give me some general feedback about how my students are performing. Probably going to take a while because I'm also going back trying to generate this as well. Oh no, it says it's not working. Okay. So here you'll see my magic insight. It says my students seem to struggle the most with multiplying 4 times 5 or 5 times 4 since the average was lower. So you'll see that it's generated a graph on the results for each of the questions. So I can see visually how my students were performing. And then it gives me, again, an overall average. So this is just a quick example, but I think it's kind of interesting depending on your content. It's still really new, so I haven't played around with it very much, but you could kind of use it to gauge very quickly in terms of like a, formative or your assessment in terms of where you could guide your teaching next. So, oh no, okay, I'll try to regenerate this. So I'm going to copy it and try it. I don't know why it's not working. Okay. And we'll see if I can get it again. Perfect. So now it seems to be generating. It's creating the interactive quiz. It'll generate my code. And then when it's done, I will be able to test my creation. I can revise it in any way I want by using the left panel. And then you can publish it. For example, the multiplication quiz, I published that as a website. So then I could share it with my students using the website or using a QR code or something that they could access via their devices. Okay. So it's taking a few minutes. You'll see it's pulling. I can internet. Right. While it's generating, are there any questions about that? Okay. Well, hopefully it looks like it is coming because there. So see, I have my New France quiz. So I would enter a nickname. Let's go with Bob again. Quick start. So then I have questions. What was the main economic activity? Okay. Again, as a teacher, you'd always have to vet this, especially if you're not uploading your own teaching materials. Who were the Cure de Bois? We'll just put some random answers in there. Okay. Okay. And you'll see when I fill them out. Great. So it gives the student feedback, but then as a teacher, there's this data button here at the top. So if I open the Canva sheet here that's connected, you'll see here I have my student Bob again, and he has all the answers here. So again, maybe this doesn't give me much information, question 1, 2, 3. So maybe I'd go back and I'd ask it to regenerate the data sheet for me with the actual questions in my table so that I could actually use that for feedback based on student performance. But just for proof of concept to show you a bit of the amazing possibilities with Canva and Sheets. Right. So I'll go back to the presentation now. I think I kind of jumped here and forward. So we kind of looked at the data in Sheets, but again, not to put students' names. So we like the idea of like having a nickname or a number that your students could use if you did want to follow up with them, so you don't have their name in there. And we didn't have time to create. We only have about 8 minutes left, but maybe if there's something we wanted to create, very quickly, we had thought about maybe if you want to play around with a portfolio or play around with Canva AI or rubrics, we would have a few minutes now where we could brainstorm together. Yeah.
That's a great time. If you have any questions, you can either unmute or type them in the chat and we can address them now. And if not, we can, experiment, try something out, and maybe a question will come as you're trying to create something.